We're back for another week of ACC Power Rankings. This week we had quite a few teams have the open date, and so I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to put those teams out there right now. You can see them all. These teams had open dates, and so we got them on the board. Let's fill in the rest. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have the if you have the opportunity, if you're able to, you can hype this video. That's a new feature on YouTube. Would really help a lot. I'd appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. So I guess I'll start at the bottom. I do have a few things to say about North Carolina. Their fans were blessed by not having to watch them this week, but they still had to hear about the mess that Bill Belichick has created. There's been some think pieces put out. There's now rumors swirling that he could step away before the end of the year. I don't see that coming this week or next week, but I do think when you get into November and that coaching carousel starts kind of spinning and you sort of are advantaged by making a little bit of an early move, they may figure out some sort of buyout by then, especially if this continues to embarrass him and the university. Might just be time. So I am starting to believe this could actually be only a one-year thing. It seems they did a really poor job evaluating talent, not adjusting what works in the NFL to what works in college, and then bringing in the talent. I think from all I've heard is that they expected people would want to flock to play for Belichick like they used to do for Nick Saban. That hasn't been the case. And then they're not, building that chemistry and the camaraderie, which is obviously different in college than the NFL. So we'll see what the future holds there. But right now they're pretty firmly in last place. Above them, I have Boston College at 16. I think those two are almost in a tier of their own. Really bad. BC in part because of injury, but and they don't have the drama that North Carolina has, but they looked really bad against Clemson. I'll save a lot of the discussion of that game for the Clemson section as I try to talk about it in a positive light for the winner and save most discussion there. But I really thought it was a poor showing all around for Boston College. Their fans were not engaged. They were late walking in after kickoff. It was practically empty with 5 minutes before kickoff. They made no noise. They hardly cheered at all. Not that there was a whole lot to cheer for, but when their defense came out there in that first possession, it was quiet. The students were kind of a mess, both during the game, leaving early, but also just not being focused on the game, being kind of a mess and messy on the subway or the T as they call it there. I just thought it was a really embarrassing showing. Their facility is in really, really bad shape. It's really, honestly, a huge disadvantage for them. Not only do they play in an area where there's not as many great football players up north in Boston and Massachusetts in that area, but their facilities are really embarrassing. They didn't have a bathroom in the entire upper deck, or at least from where I was able to access. We had to go all the way down a bunch of flights of stairs, and then the line was out the door, super far. You basically had to go into their basketball and hockey arena to use the restroom and miss a big chunk of the game. It's a bad setup, and I don't think they're a better program, and I don't think they have a better setup to win than Wake Forest. I actually think that as much as I'm sometimes critical, and just not even me, just generally people say, hey, it's really tough to win at Wake Forest, I think it's the same thing at Boston College. Really unimpressed after going there. Above them is Virginia Tech. They've got a new coaching staff coming in next year. This is just an interim, but they fell down 18-0 to a very good Georgia Tech team. After that, they sort of stabilized, but Georgia Tech controlled the game. Virginia Tech, not that good. Stanford, they got run out the door by SMU. I think SMU, at least offensively, is good. Stanford's very bad. Cal, we don't know a ton about them. I think they have some flashes of being decent, but overall aren't that good. And they had this week off. Above them is Wake Forest, who I mentioned already. Wake Forest, honestly, they could be even higher, but they lost at home by 10 to NC State a couple weeks ago. But this week they went to Corvallis and they just took the Beavers to the woodshed, just blew them out. They were up 30-plus throughout much of the game, or not much of the game, but at one point, just a dominant performance. And Oregon State's not good, but good for Wake Forest to do that. They didn't have Robbie Ashford; he was hurt. So just a dominant performance, and they should go 6-6 when you look at the schedule they have remaining. They have a really good shot to at least be 6-6. And for them, and kind of what you expected coming in and how they looked early, nearly losing to Kennesaw State, that's great for them. They've got UNC and Delaware remaining on the schedule, and they're already 4-2. So 6 wins, I think, is extremely likely. Do they beat SMU at home? Do they go on the road and beat Florida State, Virginia, or Duke? I don't know, but maybe they could steal one, go 7-5, go win their bowl game, get 8 wins. That'd be big for them. That'd be really big. So that's where they stand. Syracuse had this week off. They've got a tough stretch, though, because they will now play Pitt, and then they'll travel to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech, 2 more likely losses. They pretty much have to win one of those if they're going to make a bowl. I don't know that they will. I had them at like 4 wins before the year. Maybe now they're 5 after beating Clemson, but I think the Clemson game was an anomaly. Now that Angeli's out for the year, they're kind of back to where I kind of expected them to be at the beginning. So I could see them dipping further as the season goes on. So that's Syracuse up at 11. NC State, they actually stuck around for a while, but then lost pretty badly. They were outscored 26-0 to Notre Dame. Now, look, losing Notre Dame, even by a lot, isn't necessarily that bad. I think Notre Dame, despite their 0-2 start, is actually pretty decent, but I don't think NC State's any good. Somehow, God only knows how, they beat Virginia in an early non-conference game. They also beat Wake Forest by 10. So I got to keep them up here based on what they've done, but I don't know that I would be confident in them beating. If they played Wake Forest again, I don't know that they'd beat them. If they went to Cal, I wouldn't be confident. Syracuse, I think they'd beat, but I don't know. This is a bottom half of the ACC team. And, they've got sophomore quarterback who I don't know if they're excited about him, but they've invested in CJ Bailey. He was 17 for 30 with 3 picks against Notre Dame. And you think about, does it make sense? Is it profitable? Is it wise to start a freshman, let him start again the next year as you're building him up, getting him that experience? After this year, who knows if they keep Dave Doran? I'm starting to think they won't make a bowl, 5-7. Maybe it's time to have a kind of a cordial ending to that era. Does CJ Bailey even stay? Like, you developed him and then he's just going to leave? Meanwhile, look at Duke. They just went out, got Darren Mensah. He's awesome. Look at Wake Forest. Robbie Ashford's been better than CJ Bailey. So I don't know where NC State's at, either short-term and long-term. I think there's a lot of unknowns for that program right now. Before I keep going, hey, don't forget to like this video, hype this video, and subscribe to the channel. Again, I appreciate it. It helps a lot. Here I have Florida State and Clemson. Florida State behind Clemson now. They were at home and they lost to Pitt. That is now 8 straight ACC losses. That's SMU, Clemson, Duke, Miami, North Carolina, Virginia this year, Miami again, this time this year, now Pittsburgh. 8 straight ACC losses. So they won that huge game against Alabama, who looks like the class of the SEC, either Alabama or Texas A&M. Great wins, aged really well. But then you see them get into conference play and go 0-3 this year. And you start thinking, that Alabama game sure feels like a season-opening fluke. And that can happen on a season opener when you have no film and things are funky. And Ty Simpson wasn't really like Ty Simpson yet. He looks really good now. I think Alabama would blow out Florida State if they played again. This Florida State team has not really gotten better. And for that reason, I've dropped them down to 9. Now, do I think that Clemson's necessarily going to beat them? I don't know. I'll very much wait to make that pick, but it looks like a toss-up right now. Clemson might even be favored when that game comes, depending how Clemson and Florida State perform in these upcoming weeks. So really disappointing loss for Florida State. They've now lost those 3 in a row, plus the 5 in a row from last year. Maybe they're just a 7-win team, kind of like we said at the beginning of the year. They'd be 7-8 wins. A couple weeks ago, I was saying, hey, maybe it's not 7-8. Maybe it's 8-9. No, it's back to their 7-8 win team. And that's probably what Clemson is too. For now, I have them a little bit above Florida State, but a little bit below a 1-loss Louisville. Clemson's 3-3, 2-2 in the ACC. Picked up another blowout win. Again, North Carolina, who they beat the week prior, Boston College, who they beat this week. They're 17 and 16. I mean, they're the bottom of the barrel. They're bad. But Clemson beat bad teams badly. That's what you're supposed to do. And Clemson looked good doing it. Kate Klubnik is 44 of 54 over those last 2 games. That's an 88.5 completion percentage. That's insane. Now, part of that, again, guys were wide open. Boston College could not cover Antonio Williams. It was pitiful. Brian Westcott looked incredible, looked just outstanding, and he gave him some 50-50 balls, and Wesco won them all. They were 100-0 balls. And so that helps. But Klubnik also is making some good passes. He's not as hesitant. He's not perfect. He had a really bad interception where Randall was, I don't know if he maybe open if it was high and he had a leap for it. It could have put the ball over the safety and made that play. But it would have been a risky throw. Instead, he throws it like low and it goes just right to the defensive back who picks it off easily. There was at least one play, probably more, where I saw a guy completely open, asked the guy next to me. He said, no, I saw this other guy completely open. He threw it to basically nobody. So those are still happening some, but the frequency has plummeted a lot. We'll see this weekend. SMU, still not great defensively, but certainly better than a UNC or a BC. So we'll see if that can continue and he can start to build and prove that it's real. But I'm encouraged for sure. I think Antonio Williams, Wesco are elite talents. I think a lot of it's just getting Antonio back. Klubnik relies on him probably too much, but having him back, I mean, he's a real weapon. So you have him as the intermediate and short sort of passing option that Cade's maybe honing on too much, but either way, it's working. And then Wesco's the guy who can win plays over the top. Would like to see it get more diverse, but those two are awesome, and so that's helping Clemson a lot. The defense seems to be settling in. They were dominant for much of this game. There was maybe a few stretches where they got run on, but for the most part, I thought they were great. Jaheim Lawson, defensive end, has really become a good player. He had 2 sacks in this game. I've complimented him before. I thought he was emerging last year. He's gotten better this year. He played a lot of defensive tackle in a rabbit package in this game, which was awesome. He was really the best defensive end, maybe the best player of this game, perhaps besides Cade Klubnik on offense, or I guess those receivers as well. But on defense, he was the star. TJ Parker had a tackle for loss and a fumble recovery. I don't know that he's wowing me, but he's looking better. Will Helt is kind of wowing me, but that's just been consistent all year. He's just super consistent, really good player. I don't think this team could have or will become as good as we thought, even if they keep growing, because the running backs and the offensive line the running game is just not explosive. Antonio Williams had a 24-yard run. That was the big one on the day. The running backs are more, I like Randall. I think he's been pretty good, but he's not going to break a ton of big runs. The offensive line is not going to give him a ton of holes to do so. Gideon Davidson's not nearly as explosive as we thought. Same with David Eziomume. I like them both. Was high on both as prospects, but they haven't really flashed. And maybe they need more time, or maybe that potential is not quite there. I don't know. But I don't think the potential is there for the run game to be elite this year, regardless. And maybe they just need some of Matt Luke's size of those recruits to come in and take over. One thing on that front that was encouraging, Braden Jacobs had to play more than expected. Tristan Lee was a little banged up. I didn't even notice him. I didn't realize it until after the game went back and saw. So that's really encouraging. He had struggled in some spot duty before, so encouraging to see him do well there. Above them is Louisville. They had the week off. They're 4-1. They go to Miami on Friday. I think they'll get blown out, but let's see. If they do get blown out, maybe they drop pretty notably, maybe even like 2+ spots. But let's see. Maybe with Miami, Miami's 1-0 in the ACC. They haven't played a ton. They typically fade. Last year they were constantly getting in these way too tight games. We'll see what Louisville can do. Here's the rest of the ACC. Pittsburgh scored that huge win. Their new quarterback, I think it's Mason Heinzel, if I'm saying that right. He threw 2 picks early, then he settled in, and offensively, he really drove the ship. He looks really good, makes some big-time throws. Kind of surprised BC when they didn't know he was the quarterback. Well, Florida State knew, and it didn't matter because he was just good. So it felt like maybe that ship was sinking with Narduzzi. They lost to West Virginia, who's not good. They had lost their last 6 games of the prior year, off to a slow start this year. And it was kind of like same thing with NC State. Doran, you had some highs. You even had some consistency, but not as much lately. And maybe it's just time for a reset. Well, not in Pittsburgh. I think they've got a lot of positive momentum now. As you look at this, they're 4-2, and they've got some easy games upcoming. They're 11-point favorites next week against Syracuse. They're possibly bigger favorites when they come home from Syracuse and play NC State. Then they go to Stanford, which should be a fairly easy win, even though it's out in California. Win all those. You've already matched last year's 7 wins. The schedule gets really tough after that. You go Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Miami. I don't know if you win any of those. But if you can even win one or win your bowl game, that's 8 wins, especially if you do it in the regular season. 8 wins go to a decent bowl, maybe like the Pinstripe or the Holiday Bowl or the Gator Bowl. You got this freshman quarterback. He's returning. And I know I said earlier, I don't love spending time developing guys who aren't really ready and sacrificing the current season, but he's their best option. They're not sacrificing anything. He looks like he's got, a lot of potential. That's something to be excited about. So Pittsburgh jumps up to 6 with a lot of future potential ahead of them. SMU blew out Stanford. Doesn't mean much more than Clemson blowing out Boston College. And for SMU, they lost to 2 Big 12 opponents, and they beat kind of easy ACC opponents with Stanford and Syracuse without Angeli. So we don't know. I feel like we don't know much about SMU. We don't know much about Clemson because their wins are Syracuse, Stanford, Boston College, North Carolina, and some group of 5 teams and FCS teams. So there's going to be some sorting out between Clemson and SMU. I've got SMU at 5 because they are undefeated in the ACC. Their losses are not as bad. They did beat Syracuse, who Clemson lost to. So they probably deserve to be above Pittsburgh. Maybe, as I'm looking at this, maybe I should have them below Pittsburgh. It's tough because they are undefeated in the ACC. Pittsburgh did look bad early. SMU's looking better now. But SMU is a 10-point dog to Clemson. It is in Death Valley, but that's still a touchdown on a neutral site. We could see a lot of movement with SMU. If SMU goes and they beat Clemson, they'll jump the loser of Duke, Georgia Tech. They'll be top 4 for sure, maybe higher. If they lose, they could be 9 or 10. So this is going to be a big pivotal week for SMU. I really don't know what to expect. I think probably a high-scoring affair with Clemson. I'm leaning Clemson right now, but SMU, Pitt, Louisville, Clemson is all kind of muddled right there at 5 through 8. Above them, Duke had the week off. They host Georgia Tech. That game's a toss-up. Spreads within 2 either way, 2 points either way. I don't know. I almost want to think – I don't know if I want to think, but I lean towards – I kind of believe in Darian Mensah. Like, how much can – Georgia Tech's just willing their way to win, but I don't know that I'm leaning Duke in that game for some reason. Virginia also had off this week. They control. I guess you don't really know who controls their own destiny without looking through these standings and the schedules. But they are undefeated in ACC play. I don't know how they lost that non-conference game against NC State, but they're looking good with Chandler Morris. Interesting note I heard on a podcast today. UNC went for Purdue's transfer quarterback over Chandler Morris because he had NFL size. A classic example there of poor player evaluation at the college level at UNC. Georgia Tech, as mentioned before, controlled the game, ran the ball really well, beat Virginia Tech. They've got that big game against Duke. Really good shot that determines one of the spots in the ACC championship game. Probably not an elimination game per se, but really good shot it is. And then Miami, they had off, and they just got to not fall apart, right? Like, they are the class of the ACC. They can play for a national championship. I think they're that good. They certainly should be a playoff team and one that advances to maybe the final 8, if not the final 4, again, even the national championship. I think they're that good. They're going to be double-digit favorites on Friday against Louisville. That's a game they should win. I think they should blow them out, but they've traditionally faded. They've traditionally looked past opponents. Can they stay focused? I think this team is different. We're going to find out. So, hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy this. Let me know what you think. If you went to Boston, let me know what you thought of your experience in Alumni Stadium and on campus. Beautiful campus. Not a beautiful stadium, in my opinion. Let me know what you thought. And anyone I ranked too high or too low, chime in. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, hype, and subscribe. Thank you to our sponsor, Ready Vets. If you live in the upstate and have a dog or cat that needs immediate care, Ready Vets is the place to go. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.